warm, incredibly warm, makes everyone he meets feel $1 million, makes them feel special. He's nice to drivers, he's nice to waitresses, he's nice to those lower in society than him, and that's very much, I think, a mark of a man. He's also incredibly funny. Very, very sharp, fun sense of humour, and you've seen some of that over the last couple of weeks on the campaign.
Republican leader Donald Trump won the American elections, and this put Starmer in an extremely difficult position. It seems that it could not be worse, but here Nigel Farage comes back on stage, and his shocking stories about something dark and frankly dubious make everyone hold their breath. The situation is heating up to the limit, and no one knows what will happen next.
Well, a Labour government with senior ministers that have said very rude things about him, a Labour government that advertised for their own staffers to go to America and campaign against his opponent, which in diplomatic terms was just the most stupid thing to do, and a Labour government that has given away the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, which poses a threat to Diego Garcia, a very, very important airbase, of course, for the Americans in that.
Yes, you heard right. Labour is completely neglecting the deepest historical ties between Britain and the United States, doing exactly what the Republicans warned them about. For example, Starmer and his foreign associate David Lammy secretly made an insidious deal with Mauritius to transfer the Chagos Islands, which rightfully belong to Britain.
And now this new government, which is proving about as popular as a fart in an elevator, is handing strategically significant UK territory to the allies of our enemy. Ceding sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, which was signed off this week, is an embarrassing capitulation which plays into the hands of China, a despotic and dangerous regime which has close trade ties with Mauritius.
Think about it. Mauritius has always been a staunch ally of China, and whatever they get will end up in the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, a regime that openly opposes the United States. We are actually indirectly contributing to China's hostile actions against the United States. This is simply unbearable. To be honest, it seems that Starmer and Lammy are playing dangerous international roulette, putting decades of diplomatic goodwill and trust at stake. How could they act so thoughtlessly? What were they even thinking about? Probably nothing, ignoring all this obvious threat.
Look, you're a former naval commander, you understand these things. Look, most of us couldn't even put these islands on a map, including me. Why are they so significant, first of all?
Well, they're right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's got a huge base there called Diego Garcia. It's a fantastic anchorage for pre-positioned forces, got a fantastic runway for B-52s, and it was used extensively during the First and Second Gulf Wars to reinforce our forces there.
It's just amazing. If you really want to realize how critically important the Diego Garcia base is to the United States, you should pay close attention to it. It is not just a base. It is a strategic stronghold that plays a key role in the security and influence of the country.
But why so strategically important when it is quite literally in the middle of nowhere, thousands of miles from anywhere?
Because it means that you can send long-range aircraft there, they can land, they can refuel, you've got a naval base there. It's a fantastic place to be able to, put your forces if you need to get somewhere.
Starmer's position is simply shocking. He thoughtlessly and stupidly got into a deep pit of shame because of this dangerous deal. By surrendering the Chagos Islands, Starmer and Lammy have effectively jeopardized British sovereignty and the security of our joint military base on Diego Garcia.
Here, Julia, is two things. One is Mauritius, frankly, it isn't the sort of country I would wish to give these islands to. It's got vast issues with corruption. The Chinese will be all over this, and unless there are preserved rights to Diego Garcia, we're going to see Chinese Navy, we're going to see the Chinese Air Force there in strength because they want to dominate the Indian Ocean.
If Starmer had given even a little thought when making decisions, we wouldn't have to deal with the consequences of his every move. The most terrible thing is that he did not even inform the opposition or Parliament about his plans, which is why MPs, including Nigel Farage, harshly attacked David Lammy during the meeting.
I was described as being a sad, lonely, desperate figure, always seeking attention. And I've no doubt there are some that think that's still the case today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you very much indeed. I believe it's customary in a maiden speech to pay tribute to your predecessor, which I'm very happy to do. Giles Watling, a very decent, nice, honourable man, former actor, wears his Garrick Club tie, nothing even vaguely conservative about him, but a jolly nice chap, and it was a clean, fought campaign.
Let me say this bluntly. After Trump's victory in the presidential election, the Labour government certainly gets goosebumps from horror and anxiety. This event makes them nervous because it can radically change the political game and cast a shadow on their future.
I'm sure the Prime Minister and the whole House would wish to congratulate Donald Trump on his landslide victory last week. Hold on.
Their mindless chatter and pompous arrogance eventually sank their ship off the coast of the Republican leader. Am I supposed to be okay that it was David Lammy who called the Republican leader a tyrant and a sociopath? What an audacious statement from a man who did not seem to realize that this very tyrant would soon take his place in the White House. It's just amazing.
As, and I quote, a neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath, unquote. You also labelled him a, and I quote, tyrant in a toupee, unquote. How does that set up a relationship for you and potentially him if he wins the US presidential election?
You're going to struggle to find any politician who has not had things to say about Donald Trump in his first term, particularly on Twitter. You would have struggled with our last Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who described him as a xenophobe and a misogynist in his own book.
Okay, so you may be justifying your comments,
struggle,
but how
forgive
do you
me,
go
let me
to a
answer the
man?
question. You will struggle with the vice presidential candidate.
Donald Trump is clearly unhappy with the situation, and he's a practical man. Most recently, he spoke with Starmer and stated that he was ready to maintain friendly relations with him if he became president, and every day the probability of this is getting higher. Farage pointed to the same factors that could seriously complicate the establishment of good relations between the Republican leader and the Labour government.
You have a man from Europe, I don't know if he's here, I saw him backstage. What he did was, and what he is doing is sort of what we did a few years ago. He's doing a great job. He's always been my friend for some reason. He liked me, I liked him, and he's shaking it up pretty good over there. He was the big winner of the last election in the UK, and he's a very spectacular man, very highly respected, Nigel Farage.
I am absolutely sure that it will be incredibly difficult for Starmer to interact with him. He certainly did not expect that he would have to face the Republican leader in the role of president next time.
I will deal with whoever is the president of America.
It's very possible that Donald Trump will return to the White House at the start of the next year. Your team has, I think, quite close links to parts of the Biden administration. Have you had any contact with the Trump team?
Well, look, you're right, we do have close links with the Biden administration. That is very important to us, particularly in terms of our history, our traditions and our values as a Labour Party. But ultimately, later this year, it falls to the American people to decide who they want as their president, and I will deal with whoever is the president of America. The special relationship, the long-standing relationship that we've had, not least on nuclear deterrence, is far stronger than the identity of the next president of the US.
Have you had any outreach or ties with the Trump campaign, the Trump operation so far?
No.
Look at him. He sits here and speaks with such confidence about his willingness to cooperate with the Republicans, although both he and we understand perfectly well he would rather die than do business with the Republican leader. But alas, he will have to bow his head to the President of the United States, and this will happen in the next 4 years. His extreme actions shattered Starmer's dreams of governing Britain without succumbing to anyone's pressure. This is exactly the position Trump is going to take towards us. Starmer's optimism may give the British a faint hope, but his government certainly does not. Now he will have to correct his mistakes, and, believe me, it's not just deleting tweets and unconvincing apologies. Nigel Farage, who is never shy in his expressions, has already said everything clearly and clearly. There is a lot at stake, not just for Starmer, but for the whole of the UK. Let's be honest, dealing with the Republican leader now is like walking through a minefield. Share your thoughts in the comments.